they are all well housed. It is the 6th day of fighting between the forces of the two generals who shared power in Khartoum, which has so far killed more than 270 civilians.
De cet afflux de réfugiés, moi je viens de vous dire que j'ai déjà 320 militaires qui sont déjà dans notre territoire. Ça c'est des militaires. Et sans doute les civils, il y en a. Donc nous sommes en train de les accueillir et de prendre toutes les dispositions pour qu'ils soient aussi bien...
In Central Africa, the Central African Republic says a leading rebel group was behind the murder of 9 Chinese gold miners in the country last month. This was made known by Arnold Jubaye Abanze, the Justice Minister, on an investigation. According to the Justice Minister, the killers were indisputable elements from the CPC of Coalition of Patriots for Change, quoting the probe's final report in the March 19 death in the center of the country.
Les assassinats des 9 ressortissants chinois sur le site minier de Chimbolo sont incontestablement des éléments de groupes armés membres de la coalition des patriotes pour le changement CPC qui sèment et continuent de s'aimer la terreur et la désolation pour des intérêts égoïstes. Je voudrais témoigner toute la gratitude du président de la République, chef de l'État, et celle du peuple centrafricain à l'endroit de nos forces de défense et de sécurité, nos alliés russes qui ont réussi à neutraliser certains auteurs, saisir des pièces à conviction et mettre en débandade les résidus de ces criminels. Nous savourons leur excellent travail concerté à la satisfaction du peuple centrafricain.
Still in the region, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has reported that the atrocities in Ituri, a province in the northeastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, have continued with more than 150 civilians dead since early April. In his most recent quarterly report, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres put the number of people dead in this gold-rich province, plagued by violence from numerous armed groups, at 485 since the beginning of December.
Je prends la parole. Une légère amélioration est à noter. Sur le plan militaire, une accalmie fragile s'est installée dans l'est de la RDC. Les jours se succèdent.
In West Africa, the Nigerian government has declared Friday, April 21st and Monday, April 24th as public holidays to mark this year's Eid al-Fitr celebration. Nigeria's Interior Minister Ralph Aragbeshola made the declaration on behalf of the federal government. He congratulated all Muslims for the successful completion of the holy month of Ramadan. Aragbeshola also urged Muslims to imbibe the virtues of kindness, love, tolerance, peace, sacrifice, and good neighborliness, as exemplified by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him. And that's all. I'm back to you in the studio, Olive and Osaz.
Thank you very much, Dakpo. Interesting day. Of course, a lot of Nigerians are excited about the public holidays tomorrow and on Monday.
It's a long one.
Yes, I saw someone teasing, that Christians bring public holidays, Muslims bring public holidays. Atheists don't, offer any, neither do.
Well, talking about, I won't call them this category of people atheists anyway. I saw a report of some traditional worshippers saying that sometime in August, should actually be fixed as an official day for their own public holiday. So,
why?
Well, the reason is because, in Nigeria, we know that Nigeria is a secular society. You have Christians, you have Muslims,
I'm just wondering
atheists,
why they chose August.
I think August, just like you have December for our Christmas, right? You have, April in between for the Muslims and sometime, later in the year. So I think August for them is their own, well, I call it sacred month.
I did see that. I need to read. So, I did see that article, but I didn't read it.
I saw an article on that recently.
Well, their traditional holiday will coincide with what Nigerians and Africans are now starting to open up to a summer holiday, even though we don't really have summer here. But,
Yeah,
well,
everybody needs to contribute.
Yeah,
their own
quota of holidays. So,
What do you think is necessary, though?
well, in the interest of
public holidays, yes.
And it's just that unfortunately neither of you on this screen will participate in that public holiday, so it doesn't really mean much for you.
Yeah.
Dakwa, we'll see you again at 8 a.m. Thank you for bringing us the news this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, as usual, we will take you around the papers, looking at the front pages and sharing with you what they're saying around the continent. Let's begin this morning in East Africa as we see what's happening on the front page of the Standard in Kenya. And the front page of the Standard newspaper in Kenya is quite an interesting one. It says, I was paid 400 million shillings because I'm smart. The mystery surrounding the rushed 6 billion shilling payment to a UK company by the Treasury for control of Telecom Kenya just days before last year's polls deepens, as President Uhuru Kenyatta's ally John Ngumi reveals that the venture capital firm was willing to take partial payments. Road accidents, shock for drivers and tough rules to protect students. Kenya has no shortage of laws, policies and guidelines on practically anything. What we want to do right, but our undoing lies in the way we have naturalized political immaturity. Well, that was a bit faint. At the top of the paper we have Ruto Raila MPs close ranks on bipartisan talks. Ministry freezes projects, and of course there's a look inside the crisis in Sudan on the page, I think page 20 of the Standard. And the final story this morning on the front page of the Standard newspaper is it's Kipruto vs Bekele at London race. That's the final story this morning. Well, that's all we can take in Kenya. Let's head over to Uganda.
All right, in Uganda, you can see a very scary picture there. Someone pointing at you.
At you mean?
Well, yes. You know, it seems it seems like just pointing at everyone. And of course, that according to the caption is Mrs. Agnes Nandutu, as she's escorted by counter-terrorism police at the anti-corruption court in Kololo, Kampala yesterday, where she was charged with dealing with suspect property of about 2,000 pre-printed iron sheets.
Oh, I knew it was iron sheet scandal.
Yeah,
it had to be.
There's so many people.
I had to be
so
there.
many people.
But it's good that there are other people that are coming out, because when we talked about these iron sheets, the conversation was, it's not just the minister Mary that should be, pointed at.
Fingered.
In all of this, exactly. There are other people who are involved. It takes a community, it takes a village, really.
And I think, I agree with you. You know that whenever you hear of massive corruption cases like this, it's not just one person.
Yes.
Nobody or no minister or no commissioner, no governor went into the state coffers and packed all the money and loaded into his account. There are a lot of people who are complicit, in some of all these things, and they should be held accountable. They failed. All right. Daily Monitor this morning, the evidence against Nandutu. Fast and Furious, the Director of Public Prosecutions tables 7 grounds and 21 documents as evidence to pin State Minister for Karamoja Affairs, Agnes Nandutu, who becomes the first minister to be committed to trial over mismanagement of iron sheets meant for Karamoja sub-region. You can find on pages 4 and 5. On page 8, government suspends teachers' transfers on payroll audit. Attorney General advises Museveni on anti-gay bill. And doctor reveals how Muhakanizi battled cancer of the bone. Ugandan top scientist develops cancer detection machine. And final story on the, not the final story yet, but it says heavy fighting in Sudan blocks Ugandans rescue. DM today.
Are they talking about relationships?
Sadly, no. So we're going to have to skip it. It's something about an SUV, but yeah.
I like when they do relationship today.
Those are the stories on the Daily Monitor. Let's now move to Nigeria and see what's on the Punch newspapers.
All right, here on the Punch newspaper, the big story says, insecurity, local rice price jumps by 200%. I kid you not. Like the price of rice, I bought rice last week, but I bought foreign rice. It wasn't local rice. And at the time when I used to buy this foreign rice, I used to buy it for 6,000 naira. After a while, and I'm talking of in the space of 2 years or something, 6,000 naira, this rice jumped to 8,000, then jumped to 10,000. As I'm talking to you, I bought the rice for 14,000 naira.
For a bag?
Yeah, it's a 5 kg
A
bag.
5 kg bag.
Yeah.
Oh, that's criminal.
Like 2 weeks ago, and that's foreign rice. So imagine how much we're spending for foreign rice. Yes, 14,000 for 5 kg. Then local rice is even. I mean, you would think that okay, local rice would offer you some form of relief. During December, how much were people buying bag of rice? Bag of rice that used to be like maybe 12,000,
Yeah, got up to
13,000, got up to 50,000.
Yeah, so
and now we're seeing that local rice is jumping by 200%. When subsidy is taken off, it's gonna be red.
I agree.
Anyway, rice price soars from 173 naira per kg to 521 naira per kg under Buhari, despite government intervention. That's according to National Bureau of Statistics report. Rice farmers, producers, experts blame the rising inflation, insecurity, and others for rice woes. Lagos mob burns BRT bus as driver dies in crash. Yet another sad story of an accident involving a BRT or caused, in this case it seems, by BRT driver. El Rufai raises the alarm over insecurity ahead of May 29th on pages 2 and 30. Ogun father chains starves 2 children to death on pages 4 and 5. Every time I hear stories like this, I begin to wonder what's going on in the mind of the parents involved. How do you, as a father, bring children to this world, then intentionally starve them to death? Is it? I don't think that this is just maybe a case of wickedness. I would think that some of these parents have mental health conditions, because I would think that it's only somebody who is mentally like challenged that would intentionally starve their children to death. It's the same thing with all those parents who have all those religious hang-ups, you know.
I mean, I agree, actually. You know, there is obviously a mental health conversation that has not been had enough in Nigeria. And I think we should be taken more seriously. And also people, you know, end up being victims of, you know, the mental condition of other people. And at the same time, and of course, that mental condition of other people could be brought, you know, about by poverty and frustration, some of all of that. But there is a mental health conversation that has not been had in Nigeria.
Absolutely, and it's not been explored, and it's even very expensive to have that conversation.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, a few more stories. Substandard materials quacks caused Banana Island building collapse, according to a report on page 20. Buhari returns, avoids Sudan airspace on page 29. I think it's very obvious why that has happened. Adamawa Pope, police warned against cover-up on page 2. And final story, FAAC allocation drops as federal government and states share 715 billion naira. That's all that we can take this morning. We have more papers that we'll be looking through in the second half of the show, but if there are stories that you'd like to react to, please feel free to do that via social media. All our social media handles are at News Central TV. You can tweet at us. We'd like to take your tweets as well, make videos, reactions that you have. Would absolutely love to take them. For now, we'll go on the break, and when we come back, we'll be looking through our top stories this morning.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it, people who know that news is more than just a conversator, it's our stories, because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. We begin in South Africa, where its public postage service, which has been in a financial crisis and facing collapse, has now been placed under provisional liquidation. The liquidation of the South African Post Office, which is cracking under debt of over 4 billion rand, comes after a successful court application by one of its creditors.
Despite massive bailouts, the state-owned entity has slowly faced collapse and will see about 6,000 jobs on the line due to looming retrenchments. It has until the 1st of June before the provisional liquidation is made final. Joining us now to discuss this further is Aubrey Shabalala, the Secretary General of the Communication Workers Union. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Aubrey, can you please give us some background of how the post office find itself here? How did we get to this conversation about the liquidation?
Well, firstly, good morning to you and the viewers at home. One of the challenges that led us to be where we are, amongst others, is the fact that the legislation in the South African government actually bottlenecks the business and the operation of the post office in favor of multinational, definitely European companies that comes into the space of Korean postal services. Secondly, the issues of corruption by its all margins. And at that point, the issues of accountability per se. But all in all, we know that the post office has super business prospects to thrive. That's not the case as we stand. So the creditors that are there at the post office have not been paid for some time. So they found themselves, I would say, creative ways of getting themselves paid over the couple of months now. From time to time, they will go to court and put post office under provisional liquidation. And by that, it means that either post office face a complete liquidation, or it's somehow going to pay them immediately so that you can settle the matter. And as we have just received the news now, that is exactly what has happened. But till when? Because obviously after this there will be another creditor coming to the play.
Well, let's talk about the workers now. How do they cope, and how does all of this affect them? They rely, of course, heavily on the post office for their living wage. So tell us about the workers and, of course, the people who use the post office. How does this affect them?
Well, it's a devastating situation. Workers are under a situation where now actually anxiety because from time to time when you go to work, you're not so sure whether your company will still be sustainable, you'll still be employed or not, because these news are coming thick and fast. So it puts a strain on workers themselves with the news that even today we are going to sit around the table on the issues of retrenchment in terms of Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act, meaning that it's going to retrenchment. So workers are in the state that it's very not satisfactory. The people that rely on post offices, the poor, are also facing challenges because every now and then we hear that there are branches that have been closed down. So when the branches are closed down, it means those people who are earning social grants through government grants, they have to now either dig into their pockets, go extra distance to look for the nearest pay point where they can have their social grants. We're talking about elders here, people living with disabilities and so forth, and also expose them into things like, crime, because obviously they're going to carry a lot of money with them. So these are the challenges that we face. As a result, now just on Monday, 3 of our members who are workers of post office were shot dead in an ambush attack. So it's a situation that we are facing because of lack of security in that space.
Let's talk about the monies that was received sometime, in February. The post office did receive a 4.4 billion rand bailout from the National Treasury. Would you say that this was any help to change things around, or would you say that this was administered properly?
Well, it's actually 2.4 billion rand.
Oh, thank you for that, pointing that out.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it has not landed into the coffers of post offices yet. But we believe that that money is not enough If you look into the debts of post office, we're talking over 8 billion rands debts alone. But you also have a responsibility of turning things around in terms of revamping the infrastructure, align it to the new technologies way of doing business. That's the second point, but also looking to the cybercrime security issues. All of those things need money. So if you have to only focus on 2.4 billion rands, it's not sufficient. So it's not going to go any distance to assist post office. Hence, even yesterday, as a trade union, when we met the portfolio committee of Parliament, we expressed this thing and we said that the Treasury must look into this issue and try to address it accordingly.
All right, I want to share something that I saw, while looking through the post office, the issues with the post office. It says here, or someone here says, South Africa was a prosperous country with a growing economy 29 years ago. The ANC government took over and reduced, it to less. It says they destroyed ESCOM and the post office and infrastructure. So I want to get your views on, if the ANC and of course if President Cyril Ramaphosa's government, is also partly to blame for the way that things have been handled. We did speak about the SABC yesterday and, attempts to, of course, to set up a new board and, maybe also bring it back to the shining light that, it should be. But would you say that Cyril Ramaphosa's government should be blamed here for the failure of the post office, and all the things that we're currently speaking about?
Well, these issues are historical, and you can't shift the blame, unfortunately, from the government because it's actually a fact and it's scientific to say that things have deteriorated. And we will not necessarily say Cyril Ramaphosa's government, but we'll have to look at it holistically when the ANC took over till now. And without necessarily saying apartheid was better or good, but we are saying that things have deteriorated. We talk ESCOM, there's challenges. We talk SAPC, there's challenges. Now as post office in all the state-owned entities. And all these state-owned entities that we're talking about were one giant SOEs in Africa and some in Europe. But the deterioration now led to a situation where they are not sustainable and they have proper business prospects that they can thrive. So the government cannot be shifted from the blame. Actually, I will say that the 70 to 80% is entirely on government to be blamed on these issues.
Liquidation usually is the last resort and follows a failed, business rescue process in many situations. I mean, it's not the first point of call. Would you say that there maybe should have been any interventions that have happened or that should have happened since this announcement in February?
Well, first thing, post office is a state-owned entity. What does it mean? It means that it's owned by government. Now, if we are to go into South Africa and look into most of the government departments, government at the regional level, at the provincial level, at national level, and ask them, who are you using as your postal and courier services as a service provider? You will come back to me, you will tell me that they all use multinational companies. And that per annum, they spend over 20 billion rands. To me, if you take only 60% of government business into post office, that's already a bailout. So you don't need a rocket science to actually bail out the South African post office. You don't need to give it money for free, but there's work to be done to provide with the hospital services and health sector, at education sector and school, everywhere else. The post office has opportunities, but the political will to really make the SOE or the state-owned entity successful is not there. So that's where we are sitting. So whether you bring the issues of business rescue and so forth, but when you bottleneck the operations of the post office through the legislations and allowing the liberalization of the market, which is not a problem, by the way, we're not opposed to that. But when you allow it, but bottlenecking the SOE, it creates that particular problem. So that's where we are sitting. So even before it's rescue and others, we have to do the introspection and say, have we given a post office sufficient ground to be able to be self-productive and self-sustainable?
All right, Mr. Shabalala, thank you so much for your time this morning. We will keep up to date with the happenings surrounding the post office, and we do hope that things get better from here on.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us.
Absolutely. All right, now let's take the conversation this morning to Zambia. NAPSA law draws long queues in Kitwe and Lusaka a day after President Hakainde Hichilema signed the National Pension Scheme Amendment Bill of 2023 into law. Thousands of enthusiastic National Pension Scheme Authority members yesterday thronged the authority's offices across the country to claim 20% of their pension contributions.
And teachers across the country are excited that the Republican president has finally had the famously talked about National Pension Scheme Amendment Bill of 2023 enacted into law. Joining us from Choma is Mr. Amitej Mumbwali from Zambia Network. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Though I'm receiving a very poor audio feedback.
Okay, we hope that it improves. We could, figure out a way around the conversation. But yeah, let's get your reaction towards this bill. We did speak about it, a few days ago, and it seemed like it was great news for Zambians, senior citizens, and those who had, ties to the pension. But what's your reaction towards this bill?
Okay, this is very exciting in the Zambian community because for many years now, people have been desiring a situation where they are able to access their pensions funds before they grow old, before they run out of energies to invest. So the presumption is that when they are still energetic, they can plan for the way they spend their money. And also the challenge has been that the previous governments have been delaying. Every time someone retires, they would delay to the retirees their money. So this has been always a public outcry. In the previous years, if you've been following Zambian events, you saw that during the campaign period, people were queuing up and going to protest at the Ministry of Justice, just to protest and demand for payment of the retirees. So this is now when the Zambian government has assented the new law, which allows someone to access partially his money at 20% rate. So the conditions are that you need to have contributed about 60 times or 60 months reasonably. And then you have also, if this doesn't work, then you should have an age of 45. Then you qualify to access 20% of your package.
There's been queues. We're seeing people queuing up to access their 20%, and we're seeing also that they are qualified online. We're seeing announcements talking about the new INAPSA. They've talked about the pre-retirement benefits, and you've mentioned 45 years of age. There are some other conditions that are required that ought to be present before one can access it. But I'd like to ask again, how much impact will this 20% make? How much impact will it make in the economy of Zambia and helping the people of Zambia, sort of stand on their feet better?
Well, in terms of impact, the expectation is that people are going to utilize this money prudently and create jobs, and also have sustainable economic plans for both their generations now and generations around them, and also be able to have real investment, which they can be able to monitor now until the time that they retire. And also when they get their final package, probably they will improve their businesses or their investments. So in terms of impact economically, we presume that this means that the money will be circulating into the economy of the country, and people will be able to access their money and use it as they wish before they retire, or not wishing bad, but before they die. Because usually when people access this money, the tendency has been that they are in their last days of their lives, and so the energies to invest has not been there. So for now, we think that when they are still energetic, they are able to activate economic activities. We hope that then the government is going to have a lot of money coming out of taxes and out of other avenues that they collect money from the public, and the government is going to collect money from the public, and also the people are going to access money and do their business and success.
Well, you're talking about investment. Can you give us a picture of, how much money is accessible, for the average individual? Because if you're talking about investing some of this money, and setting up a business or some of that, then one would imagine that it's a sizable amount of money. There's of course requirements that have to be met before you're able to assess this amount. But can you give us a picture, an idea of how much is possible that will maybe be able to set up an investment for the Zambian retiree?
I'm so sorry, I'm hardly getting you, but can I imagine that you're talking about the accessibility and how instant you can access the money?
No, hold on. I'm asking about, if you can give us a picture of how much is possibly accessible by these retirees. Because you're talking about investment, and NAPSA and President Chilema keep saying that you can you gain access to some of your funds and then you can invest it, set up a business for yourself. So I'm saying, can you give us paint a picture of how much the average retiree can access, that can maybe set up a business for them?
So sorry, I can't really get any. Maybe let me just give you an overall situation about the money. When someone has been contributing for 6 times, they qualify to access this money. When someone has reached the age of 45, regardless of the amount of contributions or the terms they have contributed, they will be able to access this money. And this law is instant. So immediately the law was assented, people were able to queue up for this money. They can also use the online application. That's the easiest way to access this money. And so in terms of accessibility, I think that's the option. And actually, to make it very clear, this is not mandatory. It's actually an option. If you opt to keep it and leave it, you have to leave it there if you choose to. But then the condition also is that at the end of your retirement time, if you have contributed for 180 months, it means that you qualify for pensionable, conditionalities. But if you've been contributing for less than 180 months, you qualify for a lump sum. So this is how the law has been drafted, and it's exciting because people think they can be able to access their money by choice, now or later. And then the other thing that people don't really appreciate is the fact that you're going to access this money once. It is not like you access it this year and then the other year and the other year. No. You access it once and that's it. And then the next access is the 80% at the end of your retirement period.
Okay, we're asking, Osage was asking earlier about if you can give an idea of how much they can access, like how much investments can be made with the 20% money they can access, or they're able 20% lump sum that they're able to access. Also, I want to ask you what the challenges are and some of the challenges that this new NAPSA bill presents, NAPSA law presents. And I'm asking this because one of the challenges that I've seen online is the queues. Even though it's meant to be an online process, we're seeing a lot of queues in Zambia. So if you could share with us, what are some of the other challenges that have been experienced?
Absolutely, that's a true challenge because there's a lot of queuing up for now. Probably maybe the excitement is still new, but I think with the passage of time, we are going to reduce the number of queues, and maybe probably the authority are going to think about decentralizing the accessibility so that they don't really have one big office, or they can have branches around, or even maybe use the post office or any other outlets which people can queue up to access this. But alternatively, they are advertising the online application process. Otherwise, it's very true that there are a lot of queues and people are going to be wasting a lot of time to access their own money.
Well, I'm going to attempt my question again. I'm asking about how much these retirees can access. Can you give us a picture of how many kwacha or how many million kwacha they are entitled to? Not entitled to, but are they going to be getting as much as 5 million kwacha, 10 million kwacha, or anything like that?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Olive is going to have to help me out.
No, I think what he's asking is how much money, do you have an idea, like so far with the withdrawals or the payments that have been made, are they going to get up to 5 million, 10 million? So far, what are the payments that these retirees have been getting? Do you have an idea?
Okay, I hear you. To to imagine how much money someone is going to access, but on average, let me give you an example of if someone is contributing a 300 kwacha, Zambian kwacha, per month, and then for 60 months, they're likely to get something like 18,000 or something like that. So it depending on your salary scale, it depends on how much your also your employer has been contributing, because you also your employer contributes, and then for a period of 60 months, which is likely to be 5 years duration. So it depends on your salary scale, and also it depends on how long you have been saving. Because the 6 months is just a minimum. So if you've been saving for more than 6 months, or you've been contributing for more than 6 months, it will vary. So the amount may not be really estimatable for now, because you have different salary scales depending on your scale.
All right.
Amitaj Mumbwali, thank you so much for your time with us this morning. We look forward to having updates and seeing that this has much more of a positive impact, as the government must have intended for this to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I was not getting your questions so clearly.
It's understandable. It's a network.
That's fine. All right.
Do you think that that's something that we should implement here and maybe other parts of Nigeria? I would love to access 20% of my pension funds.
So I think it would be nice if it's an option, if it's an available option, but my problem is,
25%
someone says 25%
is available, yeah.
But the pensioners, look across every now and then you see stories in the news where pensioners are falling down, at government offices trying to get their pensions, and fainting.
Especially in certain banks. There are certain banks that are notable for
it's not the banks. I'm talking about state governments who have failed to pay pensions, for retirees for 10 years to 15 years. We've seen these things happen so many times. Even a friend of mine, his father eventually retired about 6 years ago. He started getting his pension or gratuity about last month or 2 weeks ago or so. Yes. So Nigeria also already has its own peculiarities and its own problems that it needs to sort out before we start to let people go collect 25% of their pensions. But I'm sure a lot of people will dive at it, because there's no need to be hungry when there's money in the bank. But also just to mention, the Zambian kwacha. The minimum wage in Zambia is 250,000 kwacha. It's about $52 a month. Yes.
Wow, interesting there.
Yeah, so just to paint a picture of how much people will be able to put together, and then also save in their pensions, and be eligible for sometime in the future when they choose to. But yeah, these are our conversations at this point. Let's now move into the world of sports and share with you some of the biggest stories happening there. Of course, that comes up right next here on Breakfast Central.
Thanks for staying with us. It's still Breakfast Central and it's time for sports. Now let's begin with athletics, where Africa's record holder Ferdinand Omayala recorded his fourth competitive win of the season in the 100 meters as a race to victory at the second Athletics South Africa Grand Prix in Gauteng on Wednesday, but the sub-10 target still eludes him.
Omayala clocked 10.05 seconds to win ahead of compatriot Samuel Imeta, who timed 10.22 seconds. Omayala said he believes the sub-10 target is getting closer and it is just a matter of time of fine margin race. Now, Sibusio Masenwa of Eswatini was third in 10.33 seconds, while long jumper Cheswell Johnson was the first South African home in fourth spot with a time of 10.37 seconds. A great one right there from the Kenyan, who is still making us proud right there on the tracks. Away from there, let's talk golf. Uganda's Abdul Kakito and Miriam Masiya from Zimbabwe emerged winners in the longest drive contest for the boys and girls categories, respectively, at the ongoing All-Africa Junior Golf Championship. This was moments after the third round of the championship, where South Africa maintains the lead for both genders with 54 holes completed. Uganda's Kakito hit the ball farthest among the boys on the par 4 hole 16, while the second take, which was far ahead of the first swing on the right, settled in the rough zone of the course and was therefore not considered. Meanwhile, Masiya's longest drive shots came off the Bloom driver that perfectly hit the Tiltest 8 red ball. Now, the two junior golfers received crowns and specially crafted plaques. Away from there, let's talk about cricket now, and it's about Zimbabwean batter Gary Balance has announced his retirement from cricket, saying he no longer has the desire to dedicate himself to professional sports. The 33-year-old played 40 times for England, including 23 tests between 2014 and 2017 before making a switch to the country of his birth, Zimbabwe. He signed a 2-year deal with Zimbabwe in December after being released by Yorkshire amid the racism scandal and played 6 times for Zimbabwe. In February, he became the second person to hit a test century for 2 countries after making 137 not out for Zimbabwe against the West Indies. He scored 157 runs in 5 ODIs at an average of 39.25 for Zimbabwe earlier this year, with his last international appearance coming in March. It will definitely be a great miss for Zimbabwean cricket. Well, moving away from there, let's talk rugby now. World Rugby will try out a television match official bunker at the World Under-20 Championship in South Africa, slated for June, with the possibility of being used in France later this year. For any incident where a red card is not obvious, a yellow card will be issued, and dedicated foul play reviewers in a central bunker will review the incident using all available technology and footage. Once 10 minutes has elapsed, the yellow card is either upheld or the player returns to the action, or it is upgraded and the player permanently leaves the field, unable to be replaced. Now, the trial is aimed at improving the levels of officiating, especially with concerns to foul plays, expulsion of players, among others. Away from there, let's talk football. The UEFA Champions League results from last night. You have Bayern Munich against Manchester City that ended in a stalemate, 1 goal apiece. It was Manchester United who progressed 4-1 on aggregate, while at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium, it was a 6-goal thriller as Inter Milan played out a 3-3 draw against Benfica to progress by 5-3 on aggregate. To the NBA, you have the Memphis Grizzlies leveling the series against the Los Angeles Lakers, winning by 103 to 93 points at the wee hours of today. Bucks as well leveled their series against the Miami Heat by 138 to 122 points, and the Denver Nuggets edged the Minnesota Timberwolves by 122 to 113 points to take a 2-love lead in that series. And that's up on sports update at this time. It's back to you, Osas.
Yeah, correct. Interesting that I want to talk about Thomas Tuchel. You know, I don't know if he is under the same spell that Lampard is currently under, where you return and then you just start to, you know, receive it back to back. It's disappointing, you know, for a lot of Bayern Munich fans getting kicked out like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, disappointing. I think they got undone in the first leg, you know, where Erling Haaland's brace just got Manchester City across the line. This was meant to be a competitive fixture, and the falling out of Sadio Mane as well as Leroy Sané didn't help the group any good. So I think for Tuchel, he has his work cut out at Bayern Munich. The team is definitely disunited at this point. There needs to be that unity back in the team. More importantly, the players need to get going in terms of implementing his ideas, tactical ideas on the field of play. How that will pan out, it's difficult to tell. Remember, they also played out a draw, during the German Bundesliga over the weekend. So there's a whole lot going on right there for Bayern Munich. It's just evident on the field of play in terms of the results they've had over the last 4 weeks.
And another firecracker game yesterday with Inter Milan and Benfica. Very, very interesting to see. Of course, 6 goals in that game. Did you expect it to play out that way? And is Inter Milan also showing that they, have something to prove?
Well, they have something to prove, no doubt about it, because the domestic scene has not been too good for them. Talking about Inter Milan, though they will most likely make the top 4, as it were. But looking at the Champions League, this is a very good time for them. They will be playing city rivals and arch rivals AC Milan in the semi-final. So they stand a chance to hit the final of the year for Champions League. And when you get to the final, you can always fancy your chances regardless of who the opposition is. But for us, I was expecting Benfica, no doubt, to get a goal or two. I wasn't expecting a 6-goal thriller. I was looking at, a scoreline of probably 2-1 or at the very least a 2-0. I wasn't expecting that number of goals in the game. But it also shows you how, offensive-minded teams get. Remember, the away goal rule was knocked out of the competition this season. If that was in place, you would have had home teams protecting their home, turf and trying to get away goals away from home just to, give them an edge. But this time around, Benfica, with their backs to the ground, knew they had to come out, and they played well. I think it was just exciting for the neutrals to enjoy that.
Okay, and then finally, let's bring you to the English Premier League now. Predictions and, of course, your expectations going forward. Arsenal takes on Southampton. I think the Chelsea-Manchester United game, or one of the games, is postponed. We're going to have to check and confirm that. But Manchester United's game is postponed. Yes, Manchester United-Chelsea is postponed. So Arsenal-Southampton, it's another challenge. I know that they are inches and inches and inches closer to the title. But these are games that they dare not lose. They can't even get a draw at this point.
They can't afford to get a draw against teams like that. I think for us now, over the last 2 games, we've seen them buckle under the title pressure now, because 2-goal lead against Liverpool at Anfield. Yes, it's Anfield, a very difficult terrain, but the manner at which they considered those goals, they could have lost the game if not for the heroics of Aaron Ramsdale. The same thing happened against West Ham. Yes, a derby, and we know derbies are oftentimes fiercely contested, but that was another 2-goal lead. The Arsenal we saw at the first half of this campaign won't draw those matches. So I think those 4 points dropped over the last 2 games just shows that Arsenal is under pressure right now. But I think my fear for them were able to compete favorably against Manchester City at the Etihad, as well as Newcastle United at St James's Park. Those are the 2 away games I think may decide the title race.
Manchester City is not the type that you dangle title.
Definitely not.
They will take it. They are very, very hungry. Thank you very much for, of course, these sports updates.
Thank you
very much.
We'll
see how it plays out over the weekend.
Hopefully, it goes well.
Absolutely. All right, now let's quickly share with you. We've had a very interesting hour so far on Breakfast Central. Let's share with you some of the things we've spoken about so far. Yes, we stopped in Zambia, where thousands queue for pension contributions, of course, with the new NAPSA bill signed. And South Post Office currently under provisional liquidation. Of course, seems a little bit of crisis there. In sports, Gary Balance retires 4 months after switch. That's not all this morning. There's a lot more of these very interesting conversations coming your way. And so this is what comes up next on Breakfast Central. We move to Nigeria, where the Nigerian government is to begin a 40% pay rise for workers at the end of April. And also, Adamawa, Nigeria's president-elect, urges the police to investigate. A Nigerian lady also calls for the release of a detained influencer. These are coming up next.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms.
Because we understand our stories.
There's that passion when it's your perspective and not a distant perception.
I know you hear it a lot, but it's true. Nobody can tell your story better than you.
That's what we do.
All day, every day,
On News Central TV.
our African stories by Africans for Africans.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Let's kick off in the east of the African continent, where the Sudanese army says 177 Egyptian soldiers who had been captured by paramilitaries were evacuated on Wednesday. The troops were flown out of the country on 4 Egyptian military aircraft. They were captured by the RSF group on the Saturday during joint exercises with the Sudan military. The Egyptian military did not announce the evacuation, but had earlier said it was coordinating with authorities in Sudan to secure the troops' return. Several countries, including Japan and Tanzania, announced they would evacuate their citizens, but the fighting in Sudan has delayed those plans. Sudan's paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has set up a call center to receive distress calls from citizens and foreigners in the capital, Khartoum. The group said the room operates under the supervision of a force comprising various legal, medical, and rescue teams to provide humanitarian aid. It said the room was located in the RSF's control areas in Khartoum. Now, RSF's announcement comes a few hours after a fresh humanitarian ceasefire between Sudanese military and RSF was announced. Meanwhile, sporadic clashes were reported on Thursday morning, despite the truce. Let's also tell you that Chad's defense minister says his country is hosting 320 soldiers who had crossed the border from Sudan amidst violent civil unrest. He adds that officials are in the process of welcoming them and taking all the necessary measures to ensure that they are well housed. It is the 5th day of fighting between the two forces as the two generals who shared power in Khartoum, which has so far killed more than 270 civilians.
Informer nos partenaires de cet afflux de réfugiés. Moi, je viens de vous dire que j'ai déjà 320 militaires qui sont déjà dans notre territoire. Ça, c'est des militaires. Et sans doute, les civils, il y en a. Donc, nous sommes en train de les accueillir et de prendre toutes les dispositions pour qu'ils soient aussi bien cantonés.
In Central Africa, the Central African Republic says the leading rebel group was behind the murder of 9 Chinese gold miners in the country last month. This was made known by Arnold, a justice minister, on Wednesday, citing an investigation. According to the Justice Minister, the killers were indisputably elements from the CPC, or Coalition of Patriots for Change, quoting the probe's final report into the March 19 deaths in the center of the country.
Des assassinats des 9 ressortissants chinois sur le site minier de Chimbolo sont incontestablement des éléments de groupes armés membres de la coalition des patriotes pour le changement, CPC, qui sèment et continuent de s'aimer la terreur et la désolation pour des intérêts égoïstes. Je voudrais témoigner toute la gratitude du président de la République, chef de l'État, et celle du peuple centrafricain à l'endroit de nos forces de défense et de sécurité, nos alliés russes qui ont réussi à neutraliser certains auteurs, saisir des pièces à conviction et mettre en débandade les résidus de ces criminels. Nous savourons leur excellent travail concerté à la satisfaction du peuple centrafricain.
Still in the region, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has reported that the atrocities in Ituri, a province in the northeastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, have continued with more than 150 civilians dead since early April. In his most recent quarterly report, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres put the number of people dead in this gold-rich province, plagued by violence from numerous armed groups, at 485 since the beginning of December.
Au moment où je prends la parole, une légère amélioration est à noter. Sur le plan militaire, une accalmie fragile s'est installée dans l'est de la RDC. Les jours se succèdent sans affrontement majeur. Le portrait de la situation dans la région des Grands Lacs est donc très contrasté. D'un côté, quelque part encourageant, de l'autre, une situation sécuritaire et humanitaire toujours aussi inquiétante. Ce contraste exige de ce Conseil et de l'ensemble des partenaires de la région que nous renouvelions et renforcions nos efforts.
In West Africa, the Nigerian government has declared Friday, April 21st and Monday, April 24th as public holidays to mark this year's Ramadan celebration. Nigeria's Interior Minister Ralph Aregbesola made the declaration on behalf of the federal government. He congratulated all Muslims for the successful completion of the holy month of Ramadan. Aregbesola also urged Muslims to imbibe the virtue of kindness, love, tolerance, peace, sacrifice, and good neighborliness, as exemplified by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him. The governor-elect of Adamawa State in Nigeria's northeastern region has called for the prosecution of the former resident electoral commissioner of the state, who illegally declared results for the recently concluded state supplementary governorship elections. Adamo Fintiri, while receiving a certificate of return at the Electoral Umpire's headquarters in Abuja, says he is confident all parties complicit and the act will face the long arm of the law.
Prosecuted. And I believe I'm the right person to prosecute him because he committed the offense in Adamawa, and I'm sure I'm going to prosecute him, along with the security chiefs that committed those offenses with him, because they ought to have been the one to protect democracy.
And that's all on the news at this time. Back to you in the studio, Olive and Osa.
Thank you very much, Dakwa, for those stories. Interesting as always, and of course, paints a picture of what the mood is like in many parts of the continent. Thanks for sharing. We'll see you at 9.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Now let's go back to the newspapers this morning to share with you our own picture of what the newspapers are saying in different parts of the continent. That comes up right next. We begin in Nigeria on the Vanguard newspapers to share what we can find over there. It says, Tinubu Fintiri seek police inquest into Adamawa polls. As Fintiri seeks prosecution of criminality behind drama, apologizes for attack on national commissioners. Why Buhari didn't intervene in debacle, says the federal government. Right. Says President didn't use security against opposition during polls. Okay. Okay. I'm wondering why that is being said. If that's not meant to be normal, are we meant to commend the president for not using security against the opposition?
No.
Exactly. So why is it a point to note? Oh, and there's a fumes over Kanu's detention and alien health. And of course, DMO dismisses default claims on China loan payment. We can also find here insecurity, 1,266 killed, 4,973 kidnapped in 13 months. And that's from the Kaduna state government. Just to paint a picture of what exactly Nigeria, or what, Kaduna state, southern Kaduna in particular, has been dealing with And we repeatedly say and express how desensitized and how, Nigerians seem to just hear these things and keep it moving. Every other day there's a burial ceremony being held in Kaduna State, and it doesn't seem to matter much to the average Nigerian. The president is in Saudi Arabia, of course, on the Muslim tourism, rather Islamic tourism, but this is the president of a country where dozens and hundreds and thousands of its citizens are being killed by people who are not being prosecuted or being questioned or being arrested. I can't explain it.
And these have just become like numbers. We've called them, and we always talk about how now it's not like numbers. It's just numbers.
They're numbers.
No names.
They're numbers, but it still hurts.
No, of course. Like, but like we always ask here, what's really the value of Nigerian life? One Nigerian life. If we look at that's something that we need to learn and imitate from the Western world. Whilst yes, there are killings as well, we cannot ignore the fact that the Western world does have incidences. They still struggle with terrorism, but they are very particular about showing you that the value of one life matters. And if it's one life, they will keep investigating as much as they can until they find out.
Justice.
And there will be names. Yeah. Justice for so and so. There will be names. We don't even have names. We don't even know who these people. These are people's fathers, mothers, children.
What I would always question is, what type of person, would you be to fight so dearly to become a leader, to be governor, to be president, and to get there eventually
and do nothing,
win votes and do nothing where your people are being murdered?
Well,
and just unlook, and keep it moving like it's not the most important thing. When you wake up in the morning as governor and hear that 13 people or 40 people were killed, and you just keep it moving. Exactly. They sleep peacefully, but you just keep it moving like it's nothing. It's not the biggest story in the news. Like, the biggest thing for you would be, maybe political detractors from the opposition party, whoever it is that is speaking negatively about against your government. The biggest thing to you as a governor or as a president is not the fact that you lost 100 of your citizens in the last 2 weeks. How?
I don't know. All right.
Sultan of Sokoto urges Muslims to watch for new moon. We can also find here energy poverty. Over 60% of Nigeria's population lack power. Those are the stories that I can share on the Vanguard newspapers this morning.
All right, let's move away from the Vanguard to the Daily Sun. Still, 10th NAS leadership plot to undermine rules on ranking thickens. APC elements secretly working to allow first-timers vie for Senate President and Deputy. Attempt will fail, according to Ndume. Oshiomhole joins race, commences discreet campaign. Interesting. Presidency attacks autumn, accuses governor of politicizing security, says Benway in ICU. I think, like they say in social media parlance, we been knew that. Will appeal judgment voiding Ararume's removal as NNPC board chair, says Buhari. 3,298 inmates on death row in prisons as governors fail to sign warrants. Ramadan Sultan directs Muslims to look out for moon from today. Tinubu urges police to probe Adama gubernatorial poll controversy. Setting up medical university, one of Ugwuanyi's greatest achievements, says VC. New twist in APC crisis. Northwest Vice Chairman Lukman issues ultimatum to Adamu to summon NWC on Omisore. Strike. National Assembly directs Minister to halt demolition of aviation agency offices. Hey, what is going on? They are demolishing of aviation agency offices. All right. The plot is about to get thicker. Whistleblower recoveries. Reps panel queries alleged $200 million consultancy fees. And we can see a photograph here. And this photograph is the scene of the accident where a commercial bus from Lagos Island collided with Lagos State Bus Rapid Transit System, popularly known as BRT vehicle, on the Fakor Bridge, Onoshoki Expressway, Lagos yesterday. And unfortunately, the bus was burnt because one person unfortunately died. And our thoughts and our prayers are with those who lost loved ones. Let's head over to our next paper in Cameroon.
All right, the Guardian Post this morning, it says NW governor accuses funds of fortifying Amber fighters. Veteran journalist Michael Indy dies.
Oh.
Sad story there. And of course, new old faces dominate Senate Bureau. Niat retains crown. A few stories actually. Bon Matha International Coordinator outlines mission, vision, actions of NGO. And ecstasy in SW as Southwest rather, as Victoria United secures elite one ticket. These are the stories that we can share this morning on the Guardian Post. Let's go to South Africa in the time that we have left and see what's on the Sowetan newspapers.
And on the front page of the Sowetan newspaper, Joburg set to get another mayor. That's the big story that we can see there. ANC prepares to pluck obscure councillor to succeed incumbent and fellow Al Jamar member Tapelo Ahmad, who had been ordered to resign to save fragile ruling coalition. We also have Rise Mzansi, former editor ZB launches new party on page 4. SA can afford another World Cup. Jordan not faced by skepticism over women's tourney on the back page. Ngubeni hopes to hit right note with show Child Star is back on TV. Welcome back, Ngubeni, and that's details of that on page 8. These are the stories we have this morning at the second half of Breakfast Central. And thank you for joining us to look through the papers. We still have our top stories and we have trend waves, some very important conversations happening around the continent. So we're going to break, and when we come back, we'll be looking into our top stories.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
You wake up to a lot of stories about Africa.
But this is where you get the story straight.
Where we explore different angles because we understand our stories.
There's that passion when it's your perspective and not a distant perception.
I know you hear it a lot, but it's true. Nobody can tell your story better than you.
That's what we do.
All day, every day,
on News Central TV.
Our African stories by Africans for Africans.
to have you back, and thanks for staying with us. Nigeria's president-elect Bola Tinubu has urged the Nigerian police force to fully investigate what transpired during the Adamawa State supplementary governorship election. This is as he also called on all elected officials during the 2023 elections to brace themselves for the task ahead and prepare to serve the Nigerian people. In a statement he personally signed on Wednesday, the president-elect urged the elected officials to rededicate themselves to selfless service. Of course, this is, of course, from the events that took place in Adamawa State elections, or rerun rather of the elections, where resident electoral commissioner went on to announce results. There's so many angles to this story. Went ahead to announce results of an election that were not the results by INEC, and he was not the person meant to be announcing the results. He was announcing those results according to the video clips there, alongside the Commissioner of Police in the state.
With no results actually.
With no actual results in front of him. He was basically just calling them out, from his head, I believe. Of course, this eventually led INEC to declare his result announcement null and void. The APC candidate, Aisha Binani, went on to accept the results that were declared by the resident electoral commissioner. It was aired on national television, and all this drama ensued. Remember that we, had conversations about the president being urged to ensure that, these people do not go unpunished. And I said it yesterday that you don't need to encourage the president. The president doesn't need to be told, he doesn't need to step in at every point. There are laws that have been put in place. There's the Electoral Act, there's Criminal Justice Act. All these things have been put in place to ensure that these things do not happen and do not go unpunished. Right. I don't need to go report. Nobody, governors don't need to run to the president to also to go and say, Daddy, look at what they did in our school yesterday. Come and help us punish this person. It doesn't make any sense, and that's not how you run a country.
Absolutely.
But President Muhammadu Buhari, of course, was mentioned in the whole conversation as he should encourage these people should be punished. Now the president-elect, and this president-elect we're speaking about has not been seen since the elections. Yeah. There have been numerous, notes or messages being put out by the president-elect who has not been seen by Nigerians since the electoral process was carried out, and he was declared president-elect by INEC.
And moved into the defense house, allegedly.
It's apparently not, allegedly also not in defense house, He has just not been seen, He's not been seen in public. He has not come out to address Nigerians who voted for him. I'm just pointing that out, that when you see all these messages from Nigeria's president-elect saying or encouraging the police to do this or encouraging the electorate to do that or this or that, he has not been seen since then, which I believe, and from what I've read and what I've seen, is a little worrisome for a lot of Nigerians, who would have expected that he would still, at least be active. After the election, he should still be a little active. But, right. We'll see how, this turns out.
Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has called the just concluded elections in Adamawa State conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) as the worst in his over 34 years in politics, and highlighted the need to overhaul the electoral process. INEC announced the results of the controversial Adamawa State governorship election on Thursday, with PDP's governorship candidate and elect Amadu Fintiri as winner after a series of drama ensued that initially saw the Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Hudu Yunusa Ari, announce APC candidate Aisha Binani as winner. Let's take a look.
We will always continue to strive to improve the electoral process. But not only the electoral process itself, but the people who are employed, to implement the process. I think must be people of real integrity. There is need for training and retraining, and also background checks, of individuals who are employed into the electoral body. There is so much, left to be desired from the elections we have conducted so far. I have been in politics for 34 years. This is the worst election ever. Well, I believe the people must have been terribly disappointed. You could see the mood of the country from the presidential. There is nobody is jubilating. Nobody is excited. So you can know that things have not gone the right way.
Well, that's the update with what's happening in Adamawa State. They're having conversations about alleged potential cover-up, and they have warned that there be no cover-up in this matter. There have been also allegations of 2 billion or some billions of naira being paid to the REC, and paid by Binani, which she has come out to deny. But you have urged for transparency to occur and for investigations to be carried out. Like you mentioned, what has happened was a dead attempt to subvert the will of the people, and in no case should you need to urge that arrests and investigations need to be made. I think it's clear as day. Everyone saw it. Arrests and investigations need to have occurred at this point. But some people have said that the silence of the ruling party is what has sort of intimidated or prevented the authorities from picking up Yunusari and doing the necessary investigations. I mean, these are all just speculations, but of course here on Breakfast Central, we'll be bringing the updates as regards what's happening not just in Adamawa, but around Nigeria and Africa. Now let's move away from Adamawa State and come to talk about something happening with the federal government.
Yes, the Nigerian government will begin payment of an increase in civil servants' pay by the end of April, as President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to give his final assent for disbursement any moment from now. This implies that the increment is coming just 2 months before the proposed date for the removal of petrol subsidy. The increase tagged consequential allowance will lead to a 40% rise in the current pay of government workers.
Director of Press and Public Relations, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Olajide Oshodun, explained that the federal government might begin payment of the 40% pay rise by the end of April, adding that the 3 months arrears of January, February and March will be paid at a later date. Consequential allowance salaries will be increased by 40% for civil servants from level 1 to level 17. He also explained that what is currently being received is called Consolidated Public Service Salary Structure, and it is a combination of basic and all allowances.
Now, in March 2023, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, disclosed that the federal government had approved the pay rise for civil servants in the country. Now, joining us is Sesi Agnes Fumi. She's the chairperson, Nigeria Labour Congress, Lagos State Council. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, this news report, has come with mixed reactions. There are those who are excited about a 40% pay rise, but there are those who also have fears because they know some of the reasons or believe some of the reasons that this 40% pay rise is coming, might be to put a band-aid on the major problem, which is, of course, removal of petrol subsidy and the inflation and the fears of increase of, cost of living that will come after. So let me get your views on the general, from what you've heard, what are people saying about this increment?
Of the labor, I want Nigerians to understand that labor is not excited right now for this news at all. You cannot shave the hair of someone behind the person's back. We are stakeholders. The labor, we are stakeholders. And before the government could consider the 40% increase after the removal of subsidy, all the stakeholders need to be brought to the table for negotiation. We need to be involved in whatever the government wants to do pertaining to the issue of the workers. Number one, the labor has always been on the edge of, telling the government that before you remove the subsidy totally, we still have some refineries. Let us ensure that these refineries, they are put to maximum use. Let us do the maintenance turnaround, and let us also start refining locally the products. Even if you want to now import by the marketers, is going to be just a little that they will import. Okay, now, the government has not done that. It has not done the maintenance turnaround. They are going to borrow money, $800 million, to cushion the effect of the removal of the fuel subsidy. This is not going to work because some of the states, They are yet to even implement the minimum wage of 30,000 naira.
So what you're saying, for what
the federal government is paying now,
yeah,
the minimum wage.
Yeah, let me just ask this. So are you saying that the removal of subsidy will bring more pain to Nigerians than any of these cushioning effects that the federal government is planning? That includes the 800 million naira
by the federal government. Right? It is not well thought out. If it is well thought out, all the stakeholders must be brought to the table, negotiation table. As I'm talking to you now, some state government, they have not implemented the minimum wage that was agreed by the federal government and all the stakeholders. So what happens to all those workers in those states? And it's going to be the same price of the PMS that we all be purchasing. In fact, in some states, it's higher than in some states. So if the government is talking about the 40% consequential allowances now, for those who are yet to commence the minimum wage, what happens to them? And also, how are we sure that this 40% will take care of the negative effect of the subsidy removal? So they should not shave our head at our back. We should be engaged. We should dialogue. We should talk. They should not just bring it as a policy and then force it down our throats. So government at all level and at all time, they should be ready to engage with people. That is what we are saying.
You've asked some very pertinent questions that unfortunately we here at this point cannot answer. We're hoping that the government answers these questions. But you've also made some very strong points, one of which is that stakeholders need to be involved and be brought to the table to negotiate and bargain to ensure that, we look out for what's best for the people. With what you know of the government so far, looking at past precedents, are there any indications that this stakeholder meeting will happen and that this meeting of everyone who is interested or who is everyone who has a part to play is brought to the table? Do you foresee that this will happen?
I am not sure this government is going to make it to happen. And they will begin to wonder why the rush at this 11th hour when they are already supposed to be packing their bags and their baggages. This government is winding up to leave the office in about a month's time. So why are they now rushing to implement the removal of the fuel subsidy? Why can't they leave the office is a continuous one, government is a continuous one. Why can't they leave this policy for the next administration so that they can have enough time to dialogue with people that matter, with stakeholders? We have to look at the nitty-gritty together so that all of us can profile a solution, a lasting solution, rather than creating a chaos and creating problems and issues for the next administration that is coming on board. Well, there has been some suspicion from Nigerians and most especially from us that how can government at this 11th hour goes to borrow $800 million just for them to remove the subsidy? And these are all the policies that this administration is doing lately. That is, people are, questioning their integrity. One of it is the one that they changed the naira, the currency, towards the election time. Even if it is a good intention, it was wrongly timed. The same thing with this one that this government wants to do is a wrongly timed intention. Even if it is good, it is wrongly timed. And we want to state it clearly to this government. They should not create issues and problems for the administration that is yet to come on. Because this will create largely, to a large extent, issues and problems. I want to crave on the sensitivity of this government to dialogue. Even if it is for 2 weeks, even if it is for 3 weeks, you have to engage the labor and all the stakeholders.
All right, now you mentioned that, judging from what you've seen, you're not certain that this dialogue might happen, even whilst craving the indulgence and urging the administration to actually dialogue and invite stakeholders. Now, in the unlikely event, we hope that this happens, but in the event that this doesn't happen, what do you think would be the response of Labour? Also, you had mentioned about how this is wrong timing and how, you know, we probably should have focused on working on the local refineries before officially then taking out subsidy. Is that the official position of the labor union or yours?
Exactly. That has always been our position, that our local refineries, we should put it into an optimal use. We should do the maintenance turnaround. We should even expand all those monies that has been paid for subsidy over the years, trillions of naira, could have been used to have the best refinery in the whole world. Honestly, we have done a whole lot of wastages. Even this administration, for 8 good years, they have been paying subsidy. And why is it now? Why is it in less than 1 month that they are going, that they now want to stop this subsidy? Why have they not done it 4 years ago? Why have they failed to do it 1 year ago? So that all of us will have, you know, seen the intentions, either good or bad. So we are suspicious of this administration, of, you know, doing things at a rush and at an 11th hour. Why do you need to go and borrow money? Why do you need to put more burden on the, you know, at the doorstep of the administration that is coming in? Even though the president-elect might not be able to talk, the labor is going to continue to talk. And if this continues, we will continue to push. The labor will continue to push. And nobody should see labor as being difficult, because the administration that fails to engage the people, that fails to plan, will plan to fail. That is what this government is doing. I will continue to dialogue. I will continue to push and to push until our voices are heard. Until the pains of Nigeria is being felt by the administration.
Yes, absolutely. Just to confirm, you know, because you've spoken about President-elect a few times, and of course the incoming administration. Does it matter which administration now? You know, because there is a tribunal. If it is overturned, is Labour still very fully behind, you know, and of course willing to fight for whichever administration takes over office?
Well, Labour, we are indifferent, and we always like the law to take its course. So Labour is not throwing its weight particularly behind any of the candidates, but if it's proven that the candidate that has emerged is the choice of Nigeria, so be it.
All right.
So be it.
All right, great. So now this is, you know, my question. Another question I have for you. Joe Ajaero, of course, has, you know, taken over as NLC president. I want to talk about how much faith do you think Nigerians have in the Nigerian Labour Congress at this point? And this is why I ask. In the last couple of months, in fact, majority of this current administration, there have been many times when people have called on the Nigerian Labour Congress to speak up for Nigerians. We have dealt with the petrol scarcity since October. I mean, it only just started to phase out, you know, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago. But since October 2022, there was petrol scarcity in Nigeria, Lagos and Abuja and a few other places that were dealing with severe petrol scarcity and increment in petrol price. The NLC didn't seem to be very, very vocal or very active in fighting for Nigerians at that point. The Nigerian universities were on strike for about 8 months. The NLC only showed up maybe 2-3 months before the end of that strike, maybe, or less than 2-3 months for the end of that strike. Why I'm asking or pointing these things out, because, and of course, you must have also seen the number of people who have continuously been murdered in southern Kaduna. There's too many, plethora of issues. Do you think Nigerians really trust or have any faith in the NLC as of today?
Thank you so much. You know, there is a law that is guiding all activities of Nigeria Labour Congress. Always Nigeria Labour Congress has been the voice for the voiceless, and we have not deviated from doing that. But sometimes when you are doing things, you also need to look at the situations on ground. You need to look at the current trend on ground before, you know, you also come out and start your actions. Many of those things that you mentioned, Nigeria Labour Congress has always released on the press, newspapers, TV to condemn most of all those acts, and in strong terms as well. And we've always been the checks and balances to the government. But let me tell you, towards the end of this administration, we've seen so many things that has, come up. And NSC, we thought within ourselves, we are being controlled by organs. We have, levels of organ. We have the Central Working Committee, the National Administrative Council, and then the NEC. So NLC cannot just, the president of NLC cannot just come out in most of the instances and come and speak on behalf of NLC unless you pass through to take some decisions, some certain decisions, or unless you pass through some of these organs and get, the permission of the organ on some certain issues.
All right.
So when this administration started, we saw the kind of the body language of this administration, that if we also try to show some actions, it might help this administration to elongate their tenure. And we were also tired of this administration. We never wanted this administration to, extend their stay for one day. We want them to pack their bag and baggages and leave the seat come May 28th and hand over.
All right. Agnes,
so that is why most of their actions was tending towards causing issues, causing upheavals in the environment, so that at the end of the day, there might be announcement that the environment is not conducive to conduct credible elections. There might be issues, but
we're gonna have to leave it here.
The electoral process,
in the interest of time,
and that was why NFP was very cautious of our own actions.
Absolutely.
So that we will not be
we're going to have to leave it here in the interest of time, Ceci Agnes. I would like to say more, but thank you very much for joining us and for your time this morning. We would love to bring you in again as things progress, and of course hear what more the NLC has to say. Thanks for joining us.
Election.
All right. Now let's take the conversation away from politics and see what's going on, and of course what the big trending stories are across the country. But of course, here's what's still to come this morning on Breakfast Central.
Still to come on Breakfast Central, POS operator arrested for lavishing 280 million naira.
And once again, we'll get to share with you what our top story of the day is for today.
Welcome back. You're still watching Breakfast Central. Now you're on to Trendwave. Now mixed reactions have trailed social media over the recent video of a Nigerian woman protesting for the release of self-styled relationship guru Blessing Okoro, which has now gone viral. The woman, who remains unidentified, was seen holding a white placard passionately pleading with Nigerian police to set the controversial blogger free. Let's recall that a federal high court sitting in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, weeks ago granted Blessings the tune of 10 million naira bail with equal sureties for alleged cyberbullying of Folashade Samuel, the sister of late Bimbo Ogbonna, wife to business mogul IVD. And also, she was also sued for showing the video of Sweet Sir without a National Film and Video Censors Board license and without possessing a censorship certificate. It's been more than 2 weeks now, and she's yet to meet the bail conditions. However, a Nigerian lady, simply identified as Queen Rita, also has opened up on why Blessing CEO is still locked up even after she was granted bail of 10 million naira. But firstly, let's watch this video.
Upon you, Nigerian police, free Blessing CEO. She did not commit any crime. She did not kill anybody. You guys should please free Blessing CEO. She needs to go to the hospital. She needs to go for checkup. She needs to treat free Blessing CEO. You can come and arrest me and this Blessing CEO. I call upon you, Nigerian police. Nigerian police, so Lagos State Police, free Blessing CEO. You guys should free Blessing CEO. She did not commit any crime. There is freedom of speech in Nigeria. You guys should free.
But very quickly, let's take a look at just some of the conditions that Blessings is supposed to meet quickly on your screen. You have the 10 million naira bill for Blessing CEO. The two shorties are to provide 10 million bond each. The two shorties must also provide their statement of account. One of the shorties must have a land document registered with Lagos State and in a good area of Lagos State, perhaps Lekki, and also the international passport of Blessing CEO. Those are some of the things that they're asking for, and the current utility bills from each of the two shorties and affidavit. Well, that's as much as we can take on this story, but we'll take quickly some of the comments and the reactions that people on social media are making. That's from Capman. Capman said that's normal things. Those are normal things they're asking of her. They don't want her to run away, and they need utility bills for proof of current residence. And when they say someone that is well known in Lagos should sign for her and they should bring proof of owning a land in mainland or island, they are still correct. If you are rich and well known in Lagos, that's where you must be living or owning properties. Of course, this person is talking about the fact that there's nothing so bad, there's nothing so extra, so out of place about what they're requesting for. This comment is from Last Bond. Last Bond says the bill bond is too much. She no kill person now. Yes, we know say them want teach her small lesson, but it's too much for her. That's according to Last Bond Green. Fashion_magic blog says, as a human, we feel for her, but there is a parable that says a child doesn't have influence, should know when to speak and not to speak. So Blessing doesn't have anybody to do this for her, and she's always online talking as if she has one strong person backing her. I could remember when celebrities told her to stop, she kept insulting them. Now she's left alone. She has used her character to make her help her stay away. Wow, wow, wow. Well, those are the comments you can take on this story. But let's move back quickly back to still in Nigeria, where a point of sales operator simply identified as Alpha Rafiu has been arrested in Kwara State for allegedly lavishing 280 million naira that was mistakenly sent to his bank account. The public police relations officer of the Kwara State Command, Ajayi Okasomi, confirmed this incident, and according to reports, the suspect, who is a resident of Akuji compound in Abayawo area in Lorin West local government area of the state, went on a spending spree after he received the alert in batches of several millions some weeks ago, and he didn't inform anyone. Residents of the area say they were surprised by the sudden wealth of the POS agent, who went on a spending spree, buying houses, cars, even sponsored people to the lesser Hajj, and started living a wealthy life of no known source. Little did he know what was ahead of him, but we'll take a look at how people are reacting to this quite strange story on social media. That's a comment, very lengthy one there, from Flower Girl. Said, you see the problem here? Nigerians are the problem. The mindset is irksome. Why would you want to spend money? I have a strong belief that that's business money. No offense. I'm concerned. What? No offense about what? Bride says, when a mechanic guy returned 10 million naira or so, I was given 50k as a compensation. It was these same people that blamed him for returning the money. What do people want? What do these online people want? Well, I'm going to ask the question to you, Osauge and Olive. What do these online people want? I mean, this is quite an interesting story. See what the man did with the money. He actually even sponsored people for lesser Hajj, which we can say is quite a very good thing to do. But with people's money,
well, it's giving off Robin Hood vibes. Robbing Peter to pay for. Interesting one there. But I mean, I don't know how they're going to recover the money. But I think I just like to
go to jail.
Yeah.
That's stealing.
Anyone. They're not recovering the money. How they would even get the money back? Because
let him sell all those things he's done, but for the lesser Hajj, you can't get the money back.
That's what I'm saying. That's why a Nigerian singer said, "Oh, yes, low." That means
don't go.
Yeah. But about Blessing CEO story, I mean, there are so many angles and so many perspectives to this conversation. I was looking online and I was seeing that apparently she did a movie called Sweet and Sour, and part of the movie, a lot of people said were able to draw similarities between that movie and the late Bimbo and her husband IVD's life and marriage. And it did look like it was some form of a ridicule and sort of telling Bimbo's story. I didn't get to see it, but this is what some of the people online are saying. And they're saying, so obviously, I mean, according to what we're seeing here, counts of libel, cyberbullying, and showing the film without the Video and Censors Board approval. I don't know how she's going to get out of this. I really don't know how she's going to get out of this. But, I mean, the bill requirements are there.
I don't even know why anyone wants her to get out of it if she broke the law. You know, if she has been accused of cyberstalking, cyberbullying, and, of course, breaking laws with regards to Video Censors Board and some of all of that. we should move away from a country that uses abeg to pay for crimes.
But I mean, if she's met the requirements of this bill, why is she still there?
Exactly. I mean, well...
But has she met the requirements?
She hasn't met it, but if she meets...
She hasn't met them, then she will be there. And it's someone's light of the world that is holding cardboard and begging for blessings to you. It's I don't know. There's just too many of these things. This is someone's child, But yeah, we see these things every now and then. And I remember someone tweeted a few weeks ago... I remember someone tweeted a few weeks ago that we blame Onyeze and China for all this drama because
honestly,
all this Blessing CEO thing started from Onyeze a couple of years ago when she was arrested for stalking his property.
Yes, I remember. I recall that.
Yes, exactly.
And then she told us it was a stunt later. Yes. I think the final note would be that we should all learn to be human. Regardless of what happened between Bimbo and late Bimbo and her husband IVD, regardless of how it all played out, it's very complicated when you come out and then start to tarnish the reputation of this person who's not here to defend herself. So I think that was in some way what got to a lot of people, that this woman is not here to defend herself. You tarnish her reputation and, make it all about the husband, who they now claim, I mean, we don't know what's going on between him and Blessing CEO, even though she says she's now the official therapist. And
look, this lady that is even carrying this placard, I don't even know if it's ridicule, because saying she needs to come out and take care of her bum. She needs to do this. And I'm wondering, is she really?
Yeah, it's clout. It's clout.
Like Osage said, this is somebody's light of my world. We need to get out of the show, out of the studio. Lizzie, thank you so much for bringing us Trend Wave, and I'm hoping that our audience can also share what their thoughts are on these stories that you've shared with us. Tweet at News Central TV to share your 2 cents or more. But let's share with you what's happening later today on News Central.
Yes, at 1 p.m. West African time, we're going beyond the continent.
2 p.m. West African time, Village Square, Africa.
And 5 p.m. West African time, Report Desk Africa comes your way.
It's been an absolutely delightful time to be here. I'm more than excited to be wrapping up today's show as we get to start our day and you get to start yours. No, we started our day earlier. Osage, you're laughing. Tomorrow we'll find out.
I know why you say you're more than excited.
Very excited. And it's on this note that we say I'll see you again. And wish you happy holidays to our Muslim brothers and sisters who will be celebrating the holiday tomorrow. I will join you in solidarity celebration of the holidays.
Yeah.
And my name is Olive Emodi.
And I am Osalge Ogwama. Thank you so much for spending your week with us so far. I will be back here again tomorrow morning. And we hope that you, of course, have a great public holiday as we start off celebrating our Muslim brothers and sisters.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
High five.
According to documents obtained from the Building Collapse Prevention Guild,